Welcome to Literary Dialogues with Nina Serrano, bringing you wonderful poets and writers who focus on peace, justice, and a healthy planet. I'm your host, Nina Serrano. My guest today is Dena Taylor. Her book of poems, Exclamation Point, was published this year by Many Names Press. She's also the author, with her daughter Becky Taylor, of Tell Me the Number Before Infinity, the story of a girl with a quirky mind, an eccentric family, and oh yes, a disability. A book written both from Dena's perspective and her daughter Becky's perspective about growing up with cerebral palsy. Dena is retired from Cabrillo College and lives in Santa Cruz County. Welcome, Dena Taylor, to Literary Dialogues.
Well, thank you so much, Nina, for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you. I heard your poems many weeks ago and didn't get to read them, so having only heard them, I'm very anxious to hear them again and get inside them because they revealed a whole story, your story. How did you go about writing it?
Well, this is a collection of poems that I've written over the years. And I've arranged it chronologically. And the publisher that published Tell Me the Number Before Infinity wanted to publish a book of my poetry. And so during the shelter in place time, I actually had time to put it all together. And so that's how it came together.
So that's why it does develop a whole story.
Right.
Over time.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you like to begin with to tell us about this? And one thing before we start, what made you pick the title Exclamation Point?
Well, this is the title of one of the poems in the book, which I will read. It's about when I was visiting my grandson when he was just turning 5 in New York, and his fascination with punctuation marks. So you'll see when I read the poem.
Oh, wonderful.
And after I read it, after I wrote the poem, I looked up the original meanings of exclamation points, and they were to express joy and wonderment and excitement. So it seemed like a perfect title.
It is a perfect title. So what poem are you going to begin with?
I'm going to begin with Reading in Bed. This word from John Updike, I don't recognize. Mimetics. I look at it and squint. A word I don't know and can't guess from the shape of it. Which is how I learned to read, by loving the shapes. I sat on my father's chest week after week as he lay on his back, a cast spanning sternum to toes. He would open the newspaper and show me the beauty of words. So before I ever went to school, I already knew them. I especially loved elephant, the tall ups, and the one hanging down.
Wow.
And this next poem is Wordsmiths for Parents. Was there ever a time my mother didn't correct my language, spoken or written? Barely out of diapers on a family camping trip, I went into the bathroom crying, "Mommy, are you in any of these?" From one of the stalls came her voice. "You mean, am I in either of these?" Later, she saved my letters written from camp, corrected with red pencil. Dad, who wrote a sports column for a left-wing newspaper, was a craftsman. You can always make it longer. The beauty is to shorten. He helped me write in 25 words or less why I liked Kellogg's cornflakes. I won a Roy Rogers flashlight, but really wanted the horse.
Do you think that started you on your career as a writer?
It probably did. He loved writing and he loved newspapers. So we had, lots of conversations about writing. And he really stressed that point, is to make it short.
And also to be rewarded that you won the Kellogg Cornflake Prize.
Okay, this one is called Finding Crumbs. When you were 7 and said we should enjoy every crumb of every minute of every day, you didn't know there would be minutes, days, too terrible to enjoy, too dark to find even crumbs. But still, somehow, that young spirit endures.
That poem seems very applicable to what we're facing today,
Mm-hmm.
that we do have to face days without crumbs. It takes a lot of courage.
And this is to Anna, nearly 13. We're watching the State of the Union. Look at the Supreme Court, I say. I'm watching the president, you answer. That's what I want to be. Helen Caldecott said on the radio that 75% of your generation think you won't grow up. Your hard, shattering footsteps drive rainbows into the air. Tell the earth you are here. When you were very young and always at my side, you said, I want to die when you die. No, I said, you will not want that. Now you eye me carefully, critically, hatefully even, and I can smile because everything always changes. From your bed you shout, ooh, there's a big black spider in here, but you pick it up with a Kleenex, place it out the window, alive. She said on the radio that we should tell our children what we're going to do to save the world. And that poem was written a long time ago.
So the first poem, the poem you read before that seemed like it was dedicated to Becky.
That was about Becky.
Yes.
And that was about Anna.
Yes, because you have 2 daughters.
Right. Who are now in their mid-40s. The day my daughter stayed home because she was bitten by a mosquito, Anna screeched into the mirror, my God, look at my lip. So I looked at her lip and saw her looking at me looking at her lip. We held back a moment, then broke out laughing. A good excuse for a day off, she said. Yes, I agreed, and called the school. Alas, the flu. We planned a day of bookstores, the library, lunch with Grandma. Oh, the wonders of the human body. The lip was down to normal as we finished off our breakfast. Together we walked through streets, wet with last night's rain. She kept looking at the top of my head to see if she was taller yet.
Certainly time is passing in these poems.
Yeah. And now university applications. Searching through papers, asking questions, my 2 eager daughters and I try to fit our whole lives into the narrow lines of their application forms. There is no category for my occupation or space to explain a lifestyle. When exactly was the divorce, Girl Scout camp, math contest, and what will I earn this year? I sort through memories for answers, try to imagine this table, this house, without them. Questions. When I was born, did you have any idea what my life would be like? She's home from college, a respite from roommate problems. My tears in the shower are hidden, while long-buried what-ifs emerge. Whose fault was it anyway? The answer to her question, of course, is no. Is your life in general good? She considers, then answers, given society's attitudes toward people with disabilities, I'm living the best possible life.
Well, that was definitely about Becky.
Right. And this one is about Anna, my daughter at 22. Tall cliffs of coastal fog, pelicans in formation, an occasional maverick seagull as I drive north on Highway 1. Visits are rare with this girl on her own, the cord stretched taut before the break. She has worn herself out, so we spend the afternoon sitting at her round blue table, drinking tea, catching up. Later we walk, arm in arm, eat tacos, laugh. She is glad I am visiting, cannot get enough of her. She asks me not to come to the play she's in. I'll make her nervous. But please, yes, please do come when she has 4 teeth pulled, the ones they call wisdom. Capitola morning. She opens her red curtains, smiles at the fog, puts on her sweats, goes down by the river, stares at the mist on the water, takes it all in, the quiet and softness. When she can pull away from the river fog, she walks down to bask in ocean fog, which, to her, is the perfect morning place. She stands on the pier, surrounded by gray, thick, peaceful gray. Fog changes an everyday landscape into a fairyland, erases all the hard edges.
You've lived in that area a long time.
I know, I have. I love it.
It's beautiful.
Manhattan lunch. The door opens and my ears are assaulted by the jackhammer destroying the sidewalk. An old woman takes so long coming in, the blasting sound pierces people at their tables, jolts the food behind the counter. She wears a scarf that is hardly there and a gray coat considerably torn. Slowly looks the place over, chooses a table next to mine. She looks in the direction of the food, starts counting pennies, nickels, dimes, pulled from the corners of her pockets. I stand to get another cup of coffee, bend down to her. Do you want something to eat? No, I'm just counting my money. See? She smiles at me. I have a lot. Oh, Brandy, leave me alone. These are unlikely words for a lullaby, but I used to sing them to my girls because I loved the melody. A song I heard many times as a child myself on an old record of my parents called Songs of the South African Veld. Not long ago, I sang it to my grandson as I caught my daughter glance at her husband, whom she had told that Brandy wasn't the only thing about me she disapproved of. But she looked at me and smiled, and the baby fell asleep. Then one night, engrossed in the New Yorker and listening to Larry Kelp on KPFA, out of the corner of my ear, I heard the familiar melody and called him up long distance, but he was too busy to talk. I know how that is from my days as a disc jockey. He did announce that many had called him about the old Pete Seeger collection, so he read off the songs, including Brandy, Leave Me Alone. The next day I Googled it. The original words are in Afrikaans. It can be taken as a love song or a cry for deliverance from alcohol. It really isn't a lullaby at all.
Life has gone by so fast in these poems. We're already on the 3rd generation.
Yeah.
This
And
is
here's more.
meant as a lullaby for your grandchild.
Yeah. New York week. We dropped my daughter off to catch a train to Astoria, her boys in their car seats. Orion is sad, Lucas says when she's gone, because the num-nums are dancing away. I laugh out loud at Lucas's description of his brother's deprivation of breast milk and try to cheer them up by singing lovely Rita Meter Maid, which I can hardly remember, but they think is very funny. I go Greek dancing with Catherine, my son-in-law's mother, a relationship for which there is no name in English, but in Greek there is. Much of my time is spent with Lucas. We play cowboys with lariats, fish from our kayak bed, build miniature cities, wink at each other over his joke about suffering, and make up stories. We go to the playground even though it is dark and everything is wet. He tells me about cars. I tell him about airplanes. He cries when I leave, but when I call later, it is snowing in New York, and that, he tells me, is a thing he loves. Flying home, I watch the sunset for hours, think about my favorite times. Lucas scrambling into my bed every morning for a snuggle, Orion rushing up with lips pursed for a kiss, their father telling me he definitely wants them all to come to California again next summer. My daughter saying she's glad I'm there, saying it more than once.
Now this daughter is Anna.
That's Anna. Okay, now this is exclamation points, and it involves some singing. I am visiting for their birthdays, 2 and 5. October days filled with music, remote control cars, learning to write, and Halloween. Lucas and I compose a song, he on his new piano keyboard and I on Orion's ukulele. He does the words, I the tune. One Halloween in Port Washington, a famous band played at a wedding. They played so good that the people gave them candy and they danced half the night till the sun came up. They played so good that they played the next night at a big Italian wedding, and the bride told the joke, glissando on the piano with a flourish and a grin. What is 8 plus a cow? No one knew the answer, but the cat took a bow. Hours are spent at the kitchen table, Lucas's mouth scrunched in concentration as he prints capital letters at random and then laughs when I tell him what they spell. He is fascinated by symbols, question mark, exclamation point, and ... He thinks it's terrific there's a sign for something exciting and important, or when you don't finish your sentence. Later, getting ready for bed, he shouts out, Grammy, come here, look. He points to his sheets, covered in trucks and cars and exclamation points. Beep, beep, honk, honk. He tells me, this is really important. Once home, my daughter calls. They all had the stomach flu, but laughed through it anyway because throwing up was dubbed Big Spit by Orion. And Lucas sends me his first letter written without parental assistance. On one side, Grammy, and on the other, pictures and words, team and ship, and, really important, airplane.
A lot of life has just rushed by us.
So this next one is called Park Anywhere, and this is when my younger grandson was visiting us in California. Park Anywhere. My grandson at 5 was fascinated with Becky's disability placard. We could park close to entrances, at many colors of curbs, and never have to pay. Did you buy it? Do they just send it to you? I told him it was because she walks with crutches. Oh, I thought it was just random. We gave him an expired one, which he put on a wagon, said now he could park it anywhere. Okay, now we're getting into a different theme. This one is called Sostenuto, which is a musical term meaning to sustain or prolong a note. After he leaves, she floats down the stairs, turns off the music, the red chili lights, the heat, breaks off a square of fine dark chocolate, lets it melt on her tongue. And this one is perfect timing. There comes a point when you can't stop, even if a tree falls in the forest. And anyway, the earth is already moving. Turns out a tree did fall, crashed slowly, noisily, taking out smaller ones somewhere near the house. We lay for a long time, holding tight, while our heartbeats slowed, senses returned to normal. Finally, you said, "Did you hear?" And we laughed, and we laughed. Fire season. My brother and I do this for her, our mother. He lifts the split wood into the wheelbarrow. I stack it in the shed, leaving no spaces between. She sits among the trees in a white chair and talks to us of our father, while my daughter helps us, handing me the logs one by one, our gloved hands working together. Later, we bring more chairs, admire our work, praise his woodshed. We talk carefully, lovingly about him, and sometimes we laugh. His absence hurts us all. Not long ago, on the other side of the big redwood where we sit, we put his ashes in the ground near those of his mother, poured Old Taylor whiskey slowly over the top, then drank the rest ourselves. The time since he died is full of things I want to tell him. To my mother with one breast, Sitting with a margarita, alone on the balcony after the storm, I watch the waves for hours, huge, steamy, wonderfully curved. I want to bring you here to cheer you up. Have a few. I telephone. No, you say, too soon. After my third drink, I tell the waitress. She smiles into the fog, says she would have them both removed. My child's eye sees you naked, breasts full, hair black, curly. So plentiful we had jokes about it. And laughing, you taught me to love my body too. We don't yet know the extent of your cancer. I would give both my breasts to keep you here. The clothes. It was months before I could move them from the shelves into plastic bags. The 2 black bundles remained in the closet until finally I could touch and sort through her things, still carrying her smell and shape, and now they're in the trunk of my car. She would have wanted them to go to a safe house for women, but they are not accepting any due to lack of space. Next, I sought the homeless shelter, comparing my scribbled address with those on the houses, but could not find it. The thrift store, where I bought so many children's clothes, would be a fitting place for those of their grandmother, but the streets were crowded. I could not park, took that as a sign. So they are with me in my car everywhere I go.
Dena, your life is going by too fast for me. Can we take a momentary break?
Sure.
Did you wrote these over all these 20-something years. And so did the way you write change? It seems like your voice stays very consistent.
Well, it could be that I kept going back and editing them. You know how it is.
Yes, right.
It's never
right.
really finished, a poem, is it? I mean, you can always go back and change something. So maybe the original versions would have been, you could have seen a difference in style. I don't know. Interesting question.
So continue, please.
Okay. 6 months later. It started with a letter from a friend of my mother. Had I received the plant she sent? Not that she was asking for a thank you. Oh God, I never finished writing them. Only did half. It was just too hard. But now, once more, I get out the box with all the written outpourings since her death. Yes, I answered. It's planted by the front door, waiting to bloom this coming spring. Later, I take some Irish whiskey, sit near the buried ashes of my parents, wishing I believed they were together now, with their own mothers even. Grief takes over the day. There's nothing to do but let it. Okay, so now I'm getting old too here. Prelude. I have 10,000 black dots and one squiggly fish swimming in my left eye. Oh, and did I mention the flashing lights? It can happen with age, said the doc and the internet, or from a blow to the head, which I did not have. So I stayed up one night, finished an entire bottle of Old Vine Zinfandel, knowing I'm heading into this reversed adolescence, a preface to being old. Why I stopped flying lessons. There was the thing with my shoulders, both of them, boat injuries, no strength now. And the dizziness, only once, just loose calcium in my ear, can happen as you age, they say, but would not want to be flying if it happened again. Then there was the cost. So much money for my fun. And the stem cell treatments for Becky would cost thousands if we decided on that. Oh, and the age thing. Wasn't as if I'd been flying for years. It was one of 3 things I wanted to do in my 60s, along with making wine and acting in a play, which I did. And the planes, they were old. Even my instructor needed pliers for some of the knobs. What really settled it, though, were the 2 accidents. First, the owner of the school and his son, bad weather. Then a student and his instructor in the mountains, all dead. But how I loved flying. If they're looking for an old gal to fly into space, I'm here. The day after the election, 2016. Pulling up to the curb to let my daughter out, the ticket lady got out of her little white car, waving her arms at me. I'm just dropping her off. She's disabled. She lives here. I didn't need to shout. Calm down. I just want to point out a place especially for that. Taking a deep breath, I looked at her. Her face fell. I'm so sad today, she said. Me too. We both started crying. She leaned in through my window and gave me a long hug, then went behind the car and hugged my daughter. What's your name? I'm Ruth. I've seen you around here. I waved goodbye to both of them and drove home the long way so I could see the ocean. Don't forget. First they say you do, and then you don't. And then they say you do have uterine cancer. Friends email support, beginning with, oh shit. I expected breast cancer, like my mom, my brilliant radical aunt, and their mother, dead before I was born. But I feel fine. Becky's trust is set up. Anna gets the rest. I'm trying to declutter. That'll be a good thing when I'm here later. Forget Weight Watchers for now. Forget going to the gym. Don't forget Tuesday nights. Savor everything. Be glad you were born. Be very, very glad. And this is the last one, Nina. 2020 vision. Everything stopped around my birthday, celebrated on FaceTime with whiskey and friends. There was the memorial I missed in Eugene, a dear friend from the 60s, and 2 graduations in Santa Fe, a daughter getting her master's, a grandson finishing high school. What might his generation do to forge a new world? Healthcare, housing, justice for all. Zoom is our connection now. Hiking group, writing group, family every Sunday, friends in England, yoga, concerts, and cocktails. I buy soy creamer for my neighbor. She gives me fresh eggs, which I use in the crepes made from sourdough starter that we have with blueberries nearly every morning. There have been mix-up with the vegetable deliveries, strange technical difficulties with phone and computer, and some animal dancing on the roof at night. I've had 2 ticks on my back, 2 crowns off my teeth, haven't seen my lover in months, and now he has prostate cancer. Every morning, my daughter and I do the New York Times crossword and discuss how we would answer the advice column. We find tiny yellow flowers never before noticed on daily walks to fetch newspaper and mail. Wearing whatever, no bra, wild hair. At night, we watch Rachel to keep informed, then Colbert, Trevor Noah, and movies. I weed whack and stack firewood, publish monthly newsletters for state retirees, shop every 2 weeks during senior hour, work on my book of poems, worry about what's next.
Thank you. This
Thank
was
you, Nina.
tremendous. You've gone through a whole life, and there's still lots more life. You're writing another book, it sounds like, that you're working on your book of poems.
No, that was this one.
That was this one.
Yeah.
Well, this one is marvelous, and it really is an exclamation point. Would you repeat that definition of the exclamation point again? One of it was expression of joy.
Of joy, wonderment, excitement.
Because that's all there, and all the pain, and all the problems. And even this very moment that you've ended it during this wild pandemic fires time. Beautiful work, beautiful work. Thank you so much. How can people get this book?
They can get it from their any local bookstore can order it. It's also on Amazon, of course.
So that's Exclamation Points.
Exclamation Points. Published by Many Names Press.
Yes, by Dena Taylor, and that's Dena.
Right.
This has been like a memoir in poetry. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing all this with us.
Well, thank you, Nina. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for watching. To read more of my work, poems, novels, and translations, go to ninaserrano.com and subscribe to my blog so we can keep in touch and you'll hear about upcoming shows.